The monarchy is in danger of collapse. That stark, chilling ultimatum wasn't issued by some fringe anti-royalist group or a disgruntled political opponent. It came directly from the inner sanctum of Buckingham Palace. A senior courtier, a trusted insider privy to the most sensitive discussions surrounding the crown's precarious future, has just delivered a grave warning to King Charles III. If he does not immediately and decisively sever all visible ties with his younger brother, Prince Andrew, the entire institution, the very foundation upon which the United Kingdom rests, could crumble into ruin. Hello, dear viewers, and welcome back to the channel. Before we dive into the staggering implications of this extraordinary intervention, please take a moment to click that like button and subscribe so you never miss our deep dives into the dramas and decisions shaping the royal family today. The source of this seismic revelation is a conversation shared with the publication Woman's Day, where this well-placed insider laid bare the profound anxiety gripping those closest to the sovereign. The message is unequivocal. King Charles III is currently failing to set a sustainable public image for his nascent reign, primarily because of the enduring scandal surrounding Prince Andrew, the Duke of York, and the persistent, unsettling presence of his ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson. The concern, according to the courtier, is that the public perception is quickly solidifying around a single damaging narrative, that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and Ms. Ferguson are somehow getting away with it. This perceived lack of consequence, this gentle maneuvering around permanent exile, is creating an optical disaster that threatens to undermine everything Charles is trying to achieve in the post-Elizabethan era. The fudge and the existential threat for the royal household. Optics are everything. They are the currency of survival. And in the eyes of this senior official, the current situation looks unmistakably like a fudge. A fudge in this context suggests an attempt to obscure, to compromise, or to handle a difficult situation in a vague or incomplete manner. The courtier was brutally honest, stating, and I quote, "It's essential Andrew moves out soon, otherwise it will all look like a fudge." This isn't just about property, it's about symbolism. Prince Andrew's continued residence in prominent royal properties, his occasional, albeit highly scrutinized, interactions with the family during private events, and the general softness of his enforced retirement are all contributing to the impression that the royal black sheep retains some hope for future rehab. But the insider warns that this path toward potential rehabilitation is not just unwise, it is an existential threat. They believe that if the crown continues to handle the Andrew situation with this level of ambiguity, the very existence of the firm could be put in severe jeopardy. They articulated the gravity of the situation by emphasizing that the king's actions must be strong and permanent, otherwise the monarchy is in danger of collapse. This is not hyperbole. This is a cold assessment of the damage inflicted by the worst royal scandal in decades, a scandal that has already cost the Duke of York nearly everything. The shadow of Jeffrey Epstein, contextualizing Andrew's calamity. To truly understand the weight of this senior courtier's warning, we must revisit the catastrophic chain of events that led Prince Andrew to this point of required banishment. For those who may be unversed or need a refresher on the precise issues surrounding Prince Andrew, his downfall is inextricably linked to his long-standing association with the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. This was not a passing acquaintance, it was a deeply documented friendship that spanned years and continents, placing the once high-flying royal directly into Epstein's toxic circle. The hammer came down hard when the full extent of this association began to spill into the public domain. The scandal intensified with the emergence of email correspondences, internal documents, and, crucially, admissions that implicated the Duke of York in activities that were deeply inappropriate, even setting aside the more specific allegations he has consistently and vehemently denied. The evidence presented a pattern of behavior and judgment so poor, so reckless, that it was deemed incompatible with the dignity and duty required of a working royal. The association with Epstein, a financier convicted of serious sexual offenses, was a stain that the monarchy, under the late Queen Elizabeth II and now King Charles III, has struggled desperately to bleach out. The consequences for Andrew have been swift and utterly devastating, illustrating just how seriously the palace took the risk to its reputation. Since the full scope of the scandal erupted, Andrew has been systematically stripped of nearly every public vestige of his royal life. He lost the privileges associated with his dukedom, meaning the ability to officially represent the crown. More painfully, he was forced to relinquish the right to use his title of His Royal Highness, or HRH, in any official capacity. While he technically retains his hereditary title, Duke of York, the removal of the HRH style is a profound public demotion, effectively rendering him a private citizen with a historical honorific. Perhaps most painful for a man who served in the Royal Navy during the Falklands War, Andrew was stripped of all his military honors. These were not mere titles. They were deep personal connections to regiments, accumulated through years of service and patronage. Their removal was a public, permanent repudiation of his fitness to represent the armed forces, a core component of the royal family's identity. A prince losing his hereditary title, even if only the usage of the title of prince in the style of HRH, is not a decision taken lightly. It signifies an irreversible break. The late Queen Elizabeth II only made such decisions when faced with the direst necessity to protect the institution. The king's heart versus the crown's necessity. This brings us back to King Charles III and the profound, agonizing dilemma he now faces, one that pits brotherly compassion against sovereign duty. The senior courtier acknowledged that the king holds some sympathy and compassion for his brother. This is understandable. Despite Andrew's disastrous decisions, he remains Charles's younger sibling, a shared survivor of the unique pressures of royal life, and a son of the late queen. The bond of family, particularly within the isolated environment of the royal family, is immense. However, the courtier's warning is clear. Charles can't show any weakness. This is the central conflict defining the king's early reign. Every decision Charles makes is scrutinized through the lens of continuity and credibility. He inherited a monarchy that, while beloved, is constantly battling questions of relevance and cost in the 21st century. To allow personal sympathy to override the demands of the crown would be perceived not as kindness, but as systemic failure. The expectation from the king's advisors is that his actions must not only be strong, but they must be permanent. This requirement for permanence is what necessitates the physical banishment demanded by the insider. As long as Andrew remains settled in a grand, state-owned residence, particularly Royal Lodge, a property strongly associated with the royal family and steeped in royal history, the public will continue to perceive him as being financially supported and tacitly sanctioned by the king. The physical presence must end to symbolize the political and institutional separation. If Charles allows Andrew to linger, hoping the scandal will fade or that Andrew might quietly manage a return to some semblance of public life, he risks appearing indecisive, weak, and ultimately complicit in the narrative that Andrew faced no genuine long-term consequence. The battle for Royal Lodge. The requirement that Andrew moves out soon centers squarely on his residence, the sprawling Royal Lodge in Windsor Great Park. This property, which he shares with Sarah Ferguson, is not just a house. It is a monument to the privileges he has supposedly forfeited. Andrew signed a 75-year lease on the property in 2003, making it a complicated situation to resolve legally. However, Charles has reportedly been relentless in his attempts to pressure Andrew to vacate the premises, often citing the extensive and costly repairs needed for the aging estate. Repairs that Andrew, now stripped of his royal funding, is allegedly struggling to afford. The king's desire to relocate Andrew to the smaller, less prominent Frogmore Cottage, the former UK home of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, was a clear attempt to downgrade Andrew's visibility and status. Andrew, however, has reportedly resisted fiercely clinging to Royal Lodge as one of the last remaining symbols of his former life and status. This battle over real estate, according to the senior courtier, is much more than a landlord-tenant dispute. It is the visible manifestation of the king's inability to fully assert his authority and enforce the permanent separation required to secure the monarchy's future. Every day Andrew remains at Royal Lodge, the optics grow worse, adding credence to the insiders' fear that the situation looks like an institutional fudge. The danger of collapse. Why public image is paramount. The courtier's ultimate warning that the monarchy is in danger of collapse is not merely about popularity, it is about legitimacy in the modern era. The British monarchy survives not through constitutional power, but through the consent and goodwill of the people. This goodwill is predicated on the belief that the royals uphold the highest standards of integrity, duty, and public service. When Prince Andrew's alleged private dealings went public, they struck at the heart of that integrity. The association with Jeffrey Epstein introduced a level of darkness and controversy that is fundamentally incompatible with the monarchy's role as a moral compass for the nation. In the wake of Queen Elizabeth II's unparalleled reign, a reign characterized by stoicism, unquestionable dedication, and moral rectitude, King Charles III must demonstrate that the institution is capable of self-correction, accountability, and ruthless prioritization of duty over family sentiment. If the public perceives Charles as protecting Andrew or allowing him a backdoor to rehabilitation, the institutional brand is permanently tarnished. It suggests that the rules applied to ordinary citizens do not apply to those born into privilege. This erosion of trust is what the senior courtier fears most. It creates a vacuum of respect that anti-monarchist sentiment will inevitably fill, potentially leading to a constitutional crisis down the line. The courtier's statement emphasizes the importance of Andrew's physical removal as a necessary and unambiguous signal. First, it signals that the crown places institutional survival above familial comfort. Second, it confirms that the consequences for Andrew's actions are indeed strong and permanent. Third, it allows Charles to move forward with his own vision for a streamlined, modernized monarchy, free from the constant distraction and negative press generated by his brother. The persistence of Andrew and Sarah Ferguson as a unit, often seen together still living on a royal estate, compounds the problem. While Sarah Ferguson has cultivated a public image separate from Andrew's scandal, her continued presence alongside him at Royal Lodge makes the separation appear less final, feeding the narrative that perhaps the entire family is quietly hoping for their return to grace. The courtier's inclusion of Ferguson in the critique confirms that the entire setup at Royal Lodge is viewed by senior staff as toxic to the institution's health. The immediate future. An ultimatum delivered. The message delivered through Woman's Day is a clear, public, and high-stakes ultimatum aimed directly at King Charles III. It is a warning from within his own ranks that the time for equivocation is over. The king has shown a willingness to be tough. He has already implemented cost-saving measures and demonstrated a commitment to reducing the size of the working royal family. But dealing with his brother represents the ultimate test of his resolve. If Charles cannot enforce the strong and permanent actions demanded by the inner circle, specifically forcing Andrew to vacate Royal Lodge and ensuring his exile is absolute, then the predictions of the courtier may well come true. The legitimacy of the monarchy will be questioned, public support will falter, and the stability of the entire system will be imperiled. The crown, which has survived centuries of turmoil, wars, and internal feuds, now faces a threat that is entirely self-inflicted, a threat that can only be neutralized by the absolute banishment of one man. The decision now rests squarely on the shoulders of King Charles III, familial loyalty or the survival of the crown itself. What are your thoughts on this unprecedented warning from within the palace walls? Do you believe King Charles has been too soft on his brother, Prince Andrew? Or do you think the demands for immediate and complete banishment are too harsh? Let us know your perspective in the comments section below. If you found this detailed analysis insightful, please give us a thumbs up and share this video with fellow royal watchers. Thank you for watching, and we will continue to monitor this critical situation as it unfolds.